What if the man who was right there, holding her hand, watching her breathe her last breath, had been keeping a secret for over 2 decades? What if the one person who truly knew what happened in those final moments had stayed completely silent all this time, and then one day he finally decided to speak? That day has come. A firefighter, a regular man who showed up to work that night not knowing his life was about to change forever. He heard the last words Princess Diana ever spoke. He felt her hand in his. He watched her heart stop. And then he watched it start again. And for more than 20 years, he told nobody. Until now. And what he has revealed has left the entire world completely speechless. Let's go back to the beginning. It was August 31st, 1997. Paris was quiet. The streets were dark. Most people were asleep. But inside a black Mercedes, Princess Diana was very much awake and very much afraid. The car was moving fast through the city, trying to get away from a group of photographers on motorbikes who were chasing them like wolves chasing prey. There was no peace that night. There was only speed, fear, and flashing cameras in the dark. Nobody in that car knew those were their final minutes. At 12:23 in the morning, the Mercedes entered a tunnel under the Pont de l'Alma bridge. It was going too fast. The driver lost control, and the car slammed straight into a concrete pillar deep inside the tunnel. The sound must have been horrifying. The driver, a man named Henri Paul, died right away. Dodi Fayed, the man Diana had been spending time with that summer, also died at the scene. The bodyguard in the front seat, Trevor Rees-Jones, was badly hurt but somehow survived. And in the back seat, crumpled against the twisted metal and broken glass, was the most famous woman in the world. She was still alive. Her eyes were barely open. Her body was still. But she was breathing. Emergency calls went out at 12:26 in the morning. A firefighter named Xavier Gourmelon and his team were sent to the scene immediately. They had no idea who was in that car. Nobody told them. It was just another emergency call on just another night. When Xavier arrived, the tunnel was chaos. Photographers were everywhere. Instead of helping, they were taking pictures, flashing their cameras at a car full of dying people. Xavier and his team pushed through and reached the wreck. He saw a woman in the back seat, blonde hair, barely moving, but alive. He leaned in close. He gave her oxygen. He gently held her neck steady so she wouldn't hurt herself further. And then she opened her eyes and looked at him. And she spoke. "Oh my God, what's happened?" Those were her words. Simple, confused, human. Not the words of a princess or a royal icon. Just the words of a woman who had no idea what had just happened to her, who was in pain, who was scared, and who was reaching out in the only way she could. Xavier didn't know who she was. He just saw a person who needed help. So he stayed with her. He held her hand. He kept her calm. And for a moment, he truly believed she was going to be okay. She looked like she would make it. Her injuries seemed manageable from the outside. A small cut on her forehead. A few bruises. He thought she would live. He was wrong. And that is what haunted him for the next 20 years. It took nearly 45 minutes to carefully remove Diana from the wreck. At 1:18 in the morning, just as the medical team was preparing to move her into the ambulance, her heart stopped. No warning. No dramatic moment. Just silence where a heartbeat should have been. Xavier didn't hesitate. He dropped to his knees and began CPR. He pressed on her chest, gave her oxygen, worked on her with everything he had. And it worked. Her heart started again. He had brought her back. For one brief, impossible moment, a regular firefighter from Paris had restarted the heart of Princess Diana. The ambulance left the tunnel more than 50 minutes after the crash. It moved slowly, only around 25 miles per hour, because the French medical system at the time believed in stabilizing patients fully before rushing them to the hospital. Some people later said that decision cost Diana her life. Others defended it. Nobody will ever truly know. Diana arrived at the hospital at 1:41 in the morning. The surgical team was ready and waiting. But what they found inside was far worse than anyone had expected. Diana was bleeding internally in a way that nobody could see from the outside. A vein very close to her heart had been torn open in the crash. Blood had been slowly filling her chest for nearly 2 hours. Her body was shutting down. At 2:06 in the morning, her heart stopped again, this time on the operating table. Surgeons opened her chest and manually massaged her heart with their own hands. They gave her blood transfusions. They did everything medicine had to offer. It was not enough. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the doctor stopped. There was nothing more they could do. Princess Diana, the most loved woman in the world, was gone. She was 36 years old. Back at his station, Xavier Gourmelon went home. He did not speak to the media. He did not tell anyone what Diana had said to him. His job as a firefighter came with strict rules. Emergency workers in France were not allowed to talk publicly about the people they helped, especially not public figures. So he stayed silent. 1 year passed, then 5, then 10, then 20. The world moved on, but Xavier did not forget. He could not forget, because he had been there. He had held her hand. He had heard her voice. He had felt her pulse return under his hands after he brought her back. That kind of memory does not go away. When he finally broke his silence, he said something that stopped people in their tracks. He said she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She was calm. Confused, yes. Frightened, perhaps. But calm. Oh my God, what's happened? And then nothing more. Just a breath. Just a hand holding his. Just a woman looking up at a stranger in the dark, not yet knowing that her time was running out. Xavier said he thought she would survive. Everyone at the scene thought she would survive. And that, he said, is what stayed with him all these years. Not the crash, not the chaos, but the hope. The hope that turned out to be wrong. Now, to truly understand why Diana was even in that car, you need to know the life she had lived before that night. Because the crash did not happen in a vacuum. It was the final chapter of a story that had been building for decades. Diana Spencer was not born a princess. She was born into a noble but unhappy family. Her mother left when Diana was just 6 years old. She grew up feeling invisible, always trying to earn love that never came easily. She once said she always felt like she came last, like she was never quite enough. Then came Prince Charles. He was 12 years older than her. He needed a wife. Someone young, someone beautiful, someone the public would love. Diana fit perfectly. On July 29, 1981, the two were married in a ceremony watched by over 750 million people around the world. It looked like a fairy tale. But behind the palace walls, it was anything but. Charles was already in love with someone else. A woman named Camilla Parker Bowles. Diana knew it. She even confronted Camilla about it directly. And Camilla did not deny it. The palace said nothing. Charles did nothing. And Diana was left alone inside the most famous marriage in the world, surrounded by people and completely isolated. The years that followed were painful. Diana battled depression. She battled an eating disorder. She hurt herself in private while smiling in public. She visited hospitals and hugged sick children and held the hands of people that the rest of the world was too afraid to touch. She gave everything to others while receiving almost nothing in return from the people closest to her. In 1995, she gave an interview on BBC television that shocked the entire country. She spoke honestly about the marriage, about Charles, about her struggles. She said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." The royal family was furious. The Queen herself reportedly demanded that Charles and Diana divorce immediately. In 1996, the divorce became final. Diana was free, but the freedom she had imagined did not come. Without the palace's protection, the press became even more aggressive. Photographers followed her everywhere. She couldn't eat at a restaurant or walk down a street without being chased. She once wrote a letter to her butler saying that she feared someone was planning to have her killed in a car crash, that she believed her brakes would be tampered with, that she felt her life was in danger. 2 years later, she died in a car crash. Whether that letter meant anything, or whether it was simply the fear of a woman who had been hunted for years, no one can say for certain. But it tells you everything about how Diana felt in the final years of her life. She did not feel safe. Not in England. Not in Paris. Not anywhere. In the months before her death, Diana had found something that felt like peace. His name was Hasnat Khan. He was a heart surgeon from Pakistan. He was not famous. He did not want fame. He just wanted a quiet life. And Diana loved him deeply for that. She called him Mr. Wonderful. She snuck into his apartment wearing disguises. She met his family. She thought about moving to Pakistan to be with him. But Hasnat could not live inside the circus that followed Diana everywhere. In July 1997, just weeks before she died, they broke up. Dodi Fayed came shortly after. They were photographed together on his family's yacht. The tabloids went wild. But people close to Diana believed she was still in love with Hasnat. That the ring Dodi gave her was never meant as an engagement ring. That she wore it on her right hand, not her left. On the night she died, she and Dodi were simply trying to get from their hotel to his apartment without being photographed. That was the whole plan. Just a quiet night. Just a few minutes of privacy. The photographers did not allow it, and so a car drove too fast into a tunnel. And a firefighter named Xavier Gourmelon held the hand of the most famous woman in the world and heard her ask, in a quiet and frightened voice, "Oh my God, what's happened?" And now, more than 20 years later, he has finally told the world what he heard. Not because he wanted fame, not because he wanted money, but because he felt the world deserved to know who Diana was in those final seconds. Not a royal, not an icon, not a symbol, just a woman, confused, scared, human. And that, perhaps more than anything else, is why the world cannot stop grieving her. Because she was never really the fairy tale princess the palace tried to make her. She was real. She was broken in the same ways we are all broken. She loved people deeply. She wanted peace she never found. She asked one simple question in the dark, and then she was gone. Xavier carried that with him for over 2 decades. And when he finally spoke, he did not do it for headlines. He did it for her. So that the last thing the world remembers about Princess Diana is not the crash, not the cameras, not the chaos, but a woman who, even in her final moments, was simply trying to understand what had happened to her. Rest in peace, Diana. The world has never stopped missing you.